This tutorial is part of our Building a Python Package course, where we learn how to build, test, and automate deployment of a Python Django middleware package to the Python package index. You can watch the entire course uninterrupted, ad-free, and access updated tutorial source code and other resources from our Udemy course. Now, alternatively, you can access the course via our YouTube playlist. This features tutorials from the course. Links to the YouTube course and YouTube playlist can be found in the video description. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create a Django URL path. If you remember from the previous tutorial, we looked at this brief Django request response cycle. We learned that the client makes a request, a user or browser makes a request. That request travels through the middleware first and then hits the URLs. So the idea here is that Django is trying to match the request to a URL so it can then be passed to the specific functionality provided by a view. So we have already made a view called home, and that essentially runs a basic query, select all from the product table, and then we serialize the data, we prepare it so it can then be returned. We then return the data back as a response, and then that would then be sent back to the client. So we are now going to create a URL, which is going to be connected to this home so that we can direct requests to this resource, to this functionality. Now, there's a few ways that we can do this. Now, if we go into the main app here, you can see that there is already a URL file here. I'm going to remove this. So there's already a URL file here. Now, what we can do here is add a new path here. Now, typically what you might choose to do is to create an additional URL file inside of your app. By doing that, you're placing all the code inside of the same logical unit here. So just localizing the code related to this app here. In this scenario, we're just going to add to this URL file here. Remember, it's doing the same thing, whether you add the code here or whether you add the code in the SQL query. Like I said, you can add a URL file inside the SQL query folder and connect it up, but you're essentially just extending your URLs and keeping it local to this app here. So for this scenario, like I said, we're just going to add it here. So we're going to need a new path. So first of all, we need to specify the URL. Now, there isn't a home page. Now, this is specifying the home page. We could use a slash there, but empty means the home page. So that's going to be the home page. So we're just going to use that URL. If we wanted a particular URL, we could add something here if we wanted to, but in this case, we're not going to do that. So we then need to connect this URL to a view. So to do that, we're going to need to access the view in the SQL query app. So we're going to need to import that in. So from whatever it's called, SQL query, SQL query. Not a very good name, unfortunately. SQL query. Let's import views. Okay, so we now have access to the views in our app. So we can now access them, the views. Now inside of our views, remember we had a view called home. We're actually told there is a home here. Found that for us. So we've now connected this path. So if anyone makes a request to this path, it's then going to initiate this view. So that's how we're connecting this up. Now that we have connected our URL to our view, let's just go ahead. We'll just clear that. And let's just start the server up again. So manage.py, run server. So let's just go back over to the web page, take a look. So if you now go to the home page, we do have a problem here. In order to allow non-dict objects to be serialized, set the save parameter false. So I do apologize. I've forgotten to add that in. So here it's specifying the fact that we need to set this to false. So safe equals false. There we go. We need a comma there. Okay. So with that change, I'm just going to press Control-C to close that server. And then I'm going to start the server up again. And this time you can see it's looking okay. Go back to the browser, start that again and refresh. And this time what we now have is a pair of braces there, or brackets, sorry. So this is telling me that in actual fact, we're returning nothing from the database. So we now need to actually populate our database so that we can actually see some data that's being returned. So that's what I have so far, which is good. It means that it is returning something, but obviously there's nothing being returned from the database because there's no data there yet.